Audi stays out there on the circuit.
I wonder what would happen if you were on an in lap and you overshot the just like that, and then went into the pits. Now that's Porsche did the right thing; it slowed down to make sure there was nobody behind. He wanted to go into the pits, but of course the McLaren was coming in. But if somebody were to shoot that chicane on their in lap and say, "Sorry, I made a mistake. Sorry," would there be a penalty or would there be leniency? It'd be interesting to know that one, because I'm sure if it hasn't been thought about, it will be before this race gets underway tomorrow.
So Marco Holzer still out there on the circuit after that little moment down at the chicane, with 17 minutes and 41 seconds remaining here at the Baku Street Circuit as part of the Baku World Challenge. Sebastien Loeb, the quickest man, he's come into the pits. Edward Sandstrom has jumped up into second place. René Rast has just gone purple in Sector 1. Marcus Winkelhock has done his personal best in Sector 1 as well, which is only about half a tenth slower than Rast, so let's see what his middle sector is like. It's a good one, 17.7, but Rast behind him has done a 17.6, so this looks as though René Rast might be jumping up to the top of the times there. We've got Winkelhock, and then behind him is René Rast, so the two Audis are going to come across the line one after the other. On the brakes on the run up into the chicane at turns 14, 15, Winkelhock weaves through, and then we've got this quick car of René Rast as well. So which one of those Audis is going to go quickest? Through the final corner they come. Winkelhock will come across the line to go quickest. Here comes René Rast. Will he go even quicker? No, he doesn't. Second quickest for René Rast, so a very good final sector for Marcus Winkelhock, and he's the quickest man out there at the moment.
44.156 against 44.247, and the lap times are dropping. Let's look again.
Marco Holzer.
Just about got to stop into turn 8.
Yep, bit of a moment at the left-hand junction, but Holzer sorts it out. He's pushing hard out there, isn't he, as he tries to improve his lap times. Currently 7th quickest in the track speed Porsche. Great to have Porsche in the FIA GT Series for the first time this season.
And it's so hard to read who's going to be quick next, because 1 minute was Sebastien Loeb and the McLaren, a car that may not be ultimately the most suited to the street track. Then it's the Audis. What else are Porsche going to claw back? Coder in the BMW, he's in 5th place. So is it a case of just fitting fresh rubber, or are these the tyres that they've been running on really through the first official practice session, and sort of now into the 2/3 of the way through? Slightly unusual line again.
That's Vinky.
Yeah.
What
he's trying to do is actually carry the speed all the way into the middle of the corner, make an acute turn, then squirt it out. Now, let's see whether there's any sector. He got fastest sector 1. Second sector wasn't anything particularly brilliant, but he might be able to claw away another 10th or so in a second in this final sector. 1:44.1 was his time, previous best time. 1:44.5 this time.
But Edward Sandstrom is out there with a personal best in Sector 1 and a fastest of anyone in Sector 2. His first sector, though, is his personal best, but still about half a second off Marcus Winkelhock's time. In fact, 7/10 of a second off Winkelhock's time, but across the line, there's only half a second or so between them, and Sandstrom didn't pull it out in the final sector either, so no improvement for Sandstrom. Winkelhock then quickest in the 5 Phoenix Audi. Second for the 12 Audi R8 LMS. You can see there, that's René Rast. The WRT Audi. Third is Sebastien Loeb. Fourth, Edward Sandstrom. Fifth, Alain Coder. Great lap from the BMW. Things starting to spread out a little bit now. Now the top 6 are covered by a second. With Steph Dusseldorf 6th quickest, Marco Holzer 7th quickest. Nicky Katzberg is in 8th. Andy Soucek in 9th, and Benji Hetherington in 10th position. Laurence Vanthor, after he and Ortelli have looked quick all session, they've, after that flurry of laps, have slipped down to 11th position.
But he's just gone out of the pit lane, so maybe he has got a fresher set of tyres, because what will be important for teams now, it looks like a pretty fresh set of tyres going onto the rear, the René Rast car. So what they need to know is if it is a fresh tyre, I think let's have a look and see. We have lost it. What is the difference in a new or a fresher set of tyres over a set of tyres that have done a number of laps? Ordinarily in this type of track, it's a low tyre wear track, but equally a new set of fresh rubber on its natural flying lap can deliver. So René gas has gone back out. He's on an out lap. We need to wait another couple of minutes to see when he comes around to start his flying lap on that set of what I believe is a fresh set of tires.
You see, also keep an eye out on Laurent Svanthorpe, also perhaps Sebastien Loeb, who's still out there lapping, albeit pretty slowly, so that he might be on his out lap as well. But there on the circuit is Dominic Baumann, still 23rd position for Baumann, which I think will be a bit disappointing. Car 25 off, car 25, sorry, I don't know why I emphasised it like that, but car 25 has been off and continued at turn 8, and that is the grass. This is the grass racing Lamborghini we're watching actually. Just so a half a lap or so ago, he had a little trip off at turn 8, and kept it all together, and here it is.
Yes, that's the moment. He actually did, I don't know what he tried to do, whether he felt that it was better to try and make a 3-point turn or do a donut style turn. You can hear him giving the engine a blip and a blip and a blip. There we go. He's going backwards.
Oh, that's a shame.
Never happy to see a car reversing down an emergency road like that. Not really able to see if there's traffic coming, but that's the job of the marshals to then slow those cars down with a wave yellow flag.
Across the line then comes the 52 car with Philippe Sledecka at the wheel. And that is the all-Slovakian team of Philippe Sledecka and Stefan Racina. Out of shape going down there. Indeed. Sebastien Loeb.
Yeah, I mean, the back end, the tail was wagging the front of the car, and clearly hard on the brakes, late on the brakes for the Frenchman. Down in third place.
Black flag for Danny Watts for not respecting the track limits. Now, we've seen a couple of black and white warning flags, but an actual black flag is a come into the pits, you're in actual trouble now.
Yes, you are. And Danny Watts, we didn't see what he has done, but obviously we see lots of drivers taking advantage of different parts of the racetrack, pushing the envelope. We don't know where that was that Danny Watts committed this sin, but he's been penalised with a black flag. Nobody likes to see a black flag.
No, absolutely not. Through the left-hander comes the 15 car of Steph Dusseldorp. That's odd because it flashed up that he'd come into the pits, but he's definitely out there on the track. We can see him, and he's just gone up to 4th quickest, so good lap from Dusseldorp. Loeb on that last lap did manage to improve a 44.3, but not enough to move up past Rast or Winkelhock. Steph Dusseldorp tries to wrestle the car out. He said he was really enjoying the circuit earlier actually, and once you get used to the fact that this is a slow chicane, look at the dirt there, because you can see the two thick black lines of where the cars are driving. It proves that it's certainly a one-line corner as he now flicks it into the old city past the Golden Coast Hotel on the right-hand side, then up towards the left-hander. Look at that, really working the wheel under braking.
Yeah, in the back of the car again, we saw that with Sebastien Loeb going to turn 13. Steph Dusseldorp got the same issue going into turn 8. Much slower approach, of course, but then probably a little bit less grip in that part of the racetrack. But good exit out of 9, now flat out all the way through turns 10. And in effect, whether this is where Danny Watts was committed to the cardinal sin or elsewhere, but absolutely flat out through it for Steph Dusseldorp.
Marcus Winkelhock is going to improve his lap time. He's gone purple in sector 1, his personal best in sector 2. Here comes René Rast to come across the line. He doesn't improve. Winkelhock is following him reasonably closely, so we'll keep an eye out for Winkelhock's time as the Audi comes into the pits. And Winkelhock doesn't improve actually, has a very slow final sector, loses about half a second in that final sector, Marcus Winkelhock, so that'll frustrate him because he was all set to improve his lap time. Andy Soucek has jumped up into 5th place in the 44 MRS GT McLaren. Great to see MRS here. And in Soucek and Oliver Turvey, they have a very strong driver lineup. Mike Paris is up to 7th quickest. Alain Coder, after being 2nd a few moments ago, has already slipped down to 8th place ahead of Andreas Simonsen in 9th, and the debris flying off there.
Debris, I know there's carbon fibre of it, so bodywork, but certainly it's just a rather inconvenient place in the middle of the final chicane before you come across start-finish line as the BMW roars its way down into turn 1 again. Drivers have been using that against the inside of 1 to 2, I think, where maybe some drivers have actually pushed the envelope too much. Coder goes quickest, 143.995. Where did that come from?
Very good lap from, I was just saying how far he dropped down the order, and now the BMW is right back up at the top. Great lap from Alain Coder.
Interestingly, not one purple, but just green, green, green. Enough to see the BMW, the first car to break into the 143s.
Great stuff from Alain Coder. Fantastic to see Team Brazil really getting on top of things by the looks of it. We had car 4, which is Nicky Katzberg, have a little moment at turn 8, but he managed to recover. There's debris at turn 15, which we've seen, which is the chicane before the final corner. As we now watch Kevin Estre out there on the circuit, the man who has been absolutely dominating the German Porsche Carrera Cup Championship. And now he's at the wheel of a Hexis Racing McLaren.
Couldn't have gone any closer to the wall on the outside in the entry into turn 8. McLaren literally just a cigarette paper between itself and the wall, but that's all you need, and a good exit chase by the Porsche now through this long turn 10 into flat out, literally doesn't even exist in reality. And then the run down to turn 13 once again. Watch the McLaren under brakes. We noticed that they're a little bit, tail wags the dog a bit under heavy braking, but we were able to follow Estre in that particular run.
A solid lap so far for Estre. It might see him improve a little bit, but we will be back with you in a few minutes' time as the 21 car gets pushed back into the pits. We'll be rolling the titles, and we'll be back with you to head out for the qualifying session for the FIA GT Series. Good afternoon and welcome to Baku, the capital city of Azerbaijan, for the qualifying session ahead of the final FIA GT Series round of the season. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me in the commentary box here at pit lane exit is John Watson. And after a few delays here and there, the nature of a street circuit, we're still doing free practice 2 at the moment. You can see the track temperature, 14.3 degrees. That's plummeted from about 27 degrees, I think it was, earlier on. As I say, we're still in the middle of free practice 2, or the closing stages anyway of free practice 2. Then we'll have some historic F1 cars, and then we'll have qualifying for the final round of the season. There'll only be 2 qualifying sessions, Q1 and then Q2. Because of our time restraints, there won't be a super pole session, but we're currently in the second free practice session. We've got 5 minutes to go, and John, this Baku street circuit in Azerbaijan is proving to be, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, we've got Marcus Winkelhock quickest, René Rast second quickest, Audi's 1-2, and we're seeing in this session it's more like a qualifying session than it is a free practice session, but it's the nature of the racetrack. It's a street track, it's always going to be dusty, and also in certain parts of it it's going to be bumpy as well. But by having 27, we had 28 cars at the start of play this afternoon, and again, one of the issues, that chicane has been introduced at a latter moment of the morning because of concerns of driver safety, because on the exit of what would be that chicane on the right hand side is the entrance to the pit lane, and it was an unprotected wall, so that's why that chicane's been introduced. Edward Sundstrom further down just to see where his car is. Well, he's done his work today. He also got involved. Nicky Meyer-Meltenhoff looking pretty happy with himself as well. These Audis have been pretty much the leading cars over the 2 free practice sessions we've seen today.
There you can see the 2 Audis in first and second places. René Rast 0.6 of a second clear of the second Audi of Marcus Winkelhock. Mike Parisi has just jumped up into 3rd position in the Sebastien Loeb Racing McLaren. The man from Pau is well used to street circuits as well. 4th quickest, Alain Coder in the BMW Team Brazil car. 5th place is Kevin Estre in the first Hexus McLaren. Sebastien Loeb 6th quickest. Steph Dusseldorf in another McLaren 7th quickest. McLarens make up a quarter of the field here this weekend. Nick Tandy 8th quickest in the 41 track speed Porsche. And oh, there's a bit of a moment in the background there for
one of the Ferraris.
It was Claudio Stanovic, the AF Corsa Ferrari. Just to carry on with the little run down the order. Nick Tandy 8th quickest. 9th is Benji Hedrington in the Fortec Mercedes. 10th is Oliver Turvey in the number 44 MRS GT Racing McLaren. And I think I'll stop at the top 10 because it could be here for quite a long time if I do all 27.
Well, I think the disappointing time is that of Frank Stiplow, and that's a car that's in contention in the championship, and they've also got a 5-place grid drop for an incident that occurred in the first free practice session when contact with the Callaway Corvette into turn 14-15, and it was really down to Sandstrom. He made a misjudgment, and it may well result in the Corvette not getting out in qualifying. Hopefully it will do. So the penalty was applied, and Sandstrom will take a 5-grid penalty drop.
Here's the 41 Porsche. The pink spots on it as opposed to the green spots of Martin Ragginger and Danny Watts. This is Marco Holzer and Nick Tandy, who are currently only 8th quickest, but I think there's more pace to be found in that Porsche.
Well, I think the Porsche have got the pace. It's just a question of whether they're going to show it to us. We've seen it earlier in the session as the cars come around this Baku street track through turn 10 in this 11-12 chicane, but pretty much ignored by everybody because it's flat out, so they're just running the curb, and I think they're just it's being ignored. Down the hill into the second of two 180-degree hairpin bends, turn 13, and then you've got to drag up the hill, up basically to start finish line. Porsche trying to drag past the Boots and Grignon McLaren, which it does. This was going to be a flat-out left-hand corner, but because of concerns, this chicane has been introduced. The pit airs the exit on the right-hand side, so that effectively an unprotected wall is the reason why. So flat-out now, through this final turn 16, downhill, 260 kilometers per hour, on the brakes into turn 1, run the curb 2, ignore whatever the white line is, and out of 2, then further down the circuit, down to the hairpin bend at turn 3.
There you can see the 22 car of Stoffel Vandoorne, who's out this weekend, the McLaren young driver who is recently crowned the Formula Renault 3.5 Series champion. Fantastic to have him here. 13th place for him at the moment in the Boots and Grignon McLaren. And Mike Parisi has just gone even quicker still, up into 2nd place with less than a minute to go. These times ultimately don't mean anything because it's all about the qualifying session that will be coming up next. We've also got black flags for car number 7, which is Matev Stumpf and Patrick Kuna, but still it gives us a good indication of who's on it, and it will give the teams a good indication of if they're on it or not.
Well, let's follow the McLaren as best we can. Let's come out of turn 3. Then you come to this really, talk about a bus stop, it's more like a pram stop. And it's turn 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you accelerate out, then you come into the section of the racetrack which is the older park, and we'll hopefully get a glimpse of that.
This is the final chicane up at turns 14 and 15, and this is the 11 car of Laurens Vanthoor we're watching. Winkelhock's jumped up into 2nd place, as you say, John, only a 1/10 of a second behind Rene Rast now, but Laurens Vanthoor in that 11 car is our championship leader. Car 42 will be reported to the stewards for exceeding track limits, which we've already seen Danny Watts being given the black flag, so now he will be reported as well, because he obviously hasn't been to see them. As they come down into the hairpin, this is, sorry, my apologies, this isn't Laurens Vanthoor, this is the other WRT of Gregoire de Moustier and Philippe Albuquerque in the 18 car, which Gregoire de Moustier is driving at the moment and is down in 24th place, so Moustier not really hooking it up at the moment.
Well, he had a bad start of the day because the left rear had a suspension problem. I think a shock absorber, either the shock absorber or the mounting failed, and he then had to make a long way back to the pits with the car, which effectively managed to deflate the rear tyre. At one point it was burning as well. So de Moustier really making up more, I think, for lost time than certainly a lack of pace. We saw he had a great deal of pace back at Navarro a number of weekends ago when he drove for the McLaren.
Von Ryan.
Racing.
So as the checkered flag goes out here at Baku, we end our 2nd free practice session, and there's no one out there really improving. In fact, a lot of drivers have come into the pits. view as that you can see the sun glinting off the tarmac here. I think this is going to look like a pretty spectacular qualifying session, because I think we'll start to see the lights coming up over in the city as the cars wind their way through turns 14 and 15, then into turn 16, the final left-hander on the circuit. And there was a bit of an improvement there for Marcus Winkelhock, but he remains in second position. There was also a jump up, I think, for Dominic Baumann. He's back up into 23rd position. Gregor Moussier comes across the line to finish 24th. There you can see the number 4 BMW of Max Martin pulling into the pits to finish the session 10th quickest. And 41 track speed Porsche of Nick Tandy finishing in 5th position. There's Nick Katzberg for the Mark VDS squad. I think they'll be reasonably happy with the pace. They're 1.4 seconds off the quickest driver, but they're in the mix. It's so difficult to know, isn't it? Because first place to 4th place is 7/10 of a second, but from there down to, say, 12th is another 7/10 of a second.
I mean, the thing that I can't say for sure is, did anybody run in Utah? I suspect that both as fast as 2 Audis did do. I don't know if others would have done, or at what point they might have chosen to do so. So until we get into qualifying, what we've got is a guide, but not necessarily the true indicator of the form of anybody in this field. And again, principally because we're on a street track, which is evolving every lap, literally almost by every car. The track itself is improving. The big problem that teams are going to face is that when they go into qualifying, is that we've seen the track reduction, the track temperature reduced by almost 50% from what, 2 hours ago, from 27 Celsius down to 14. That's a massive drop in temperature. So what that will do to a car is basically change the characteristic, principally of how the tyre interacts with the circuit, but it means that drivers are going to have to adjust to a different level of initial feel and initial bite that they're going to get. And of course, with a lot of low-speed corners where you don't have the downforce to rely on, you're looking at the mechanical end of the car to give you the performance, to give you the bite, the grip, ultimately to give you the confidence.
So, just listening to Nicky Katzberg, reckons he can find more time when he gets into the rhythm of the track a little bit more, which must be very important at street tracks.
Jack, it's like a commentator. He can always do a better lap the next time he gets a chance to speak. You know, racing drivers, commentators, everything's going to be better next time that we go on air. More information, more concise analysis.
Never is, though.
Of course there is.
Here's a look at the results then of free practice 2. Audi 1-2, WRT ahead of Phoenix Racing. Fantastic to see Phoenix so far up at the front. Marcus Winkelhock and Enzo Eid second quickest. Andy Zuber and Mike Parisi third quickest. Caca Bueno and Alam Coder fourth quickest in their BMW Team Brazil car. Nick Tandy did manage to jump up into 5th place towards the end of that session ahead of Rob Bell and Kevin Estra. And Sebastien Loeb 7th quickest in the end, a second down on René Rast's time. Ollie Webb and Benji Hetherington 9th quickest in the Mercedes, and I think that was the first of the Mercedes, wasn't it? Yeah, so good work from Fortec to be the quickest of the Mercedes after struggling against HTP at the Spa 24 Hours. They seem to be a lot happier here. There you can see 13th place for Stephane Ortelli and Laurence Vanthor, our championship leaders, closely followed by Afanasiev and Cinnamon, who are our Pro-Am championship leaders. Frederic Verviche and Stoffel Van Dorn unable to do any better than 15th quickest, 2 seconds off the pace, and 1 second off the pace of their teammates. But their teammates, to be fair, are Steph Dusseldorp and Alexander Sims, so no real embarrassment there. You can see Martin Ragginger and Danny Watts, they have a black flag, and we'll have to have a chat to the stewards about cutting the chicane. Petter Giroux and Jarek Yanis doing a good job there to finish in 20th position. Philippe Slidecker and Stefan Racina, I think, will be disappointed. Only 21st quickest for them. In fact, both of the Graf to the Racing cars appearing to struggle here. 21st and 23rd place for a team that is usually very quick indeed. And there you can see, slowest of anyone, the Gentleman Trophy squad of Mark Thomas and Ilya Melnikov. But Maximilian Buch and Alan Day, only 26th quickest, but they only did 7 laps, so they probably just went out to shake it down and didn't want to risk any more damage. Here's the championship standings then as we head into the final weekend. Stephane Ortelli and Laurence Vanthor quickest, with the most points, 101, 5 points clear of Edward Sandstrom and Frank Stippler, so that's going to be the battle for the title. if it all goes pear-shaped and Rast and Nicky Meyer win, they can get into title contention, but they're very much the outsiders coming into this weekend. Sebastien Loeb and Alvaro Parent fourth in the championship. They're going to be wanting to finish ahead of Alan Day and René Rast, who are currently in 5th and 6th place in the championship, with Parisi and Zuber both on 61 points. So it's very, very close at the top of the championship. And now we look further down. Stefan Rossina 9th in the championship, ahead of Caca Bueno and Alain Coder. Sergio Jimenez, Peter Cox, Harun Chandok, Jan Seyfarth, Ricardo Zonta 15th in the standings because he had to miss the last race in Navarra because he was racing down in his native Brazil. Steph Dusseldorp, having appeared in one event so far this season, is 18th in the championship standings, but if he can keep up his pace of 8th quickest, we may well see him climbing up the order just a little bit more, which would be great to see for the very tall Dutchman. Really, it's going to be the battle at the top of the Pro Cup standings that is the one to watch. And you can see a couple of drivers picking up 1 point. Daniel Kilvitz, who hopefully will be out in the Corvette, already has a point this season after competing in a McLaren at the opening round of the season in Nogaro, wasn't it, in France, back on Easter weekend. And he was alongside Nicholas Kenetich. Kilvitz will be hoping to add some more points to his repertoire this weekend. And there you can see the big flame towers here in Baku that dominate the cityscape, really, up on the hill. And it's really a very impressive scenery. And there you can see the chicane at turns 15 and 16 that heads towards the final corner. As before they come to the start-finish line once more, there you can see the crowd making their way towards or away from the circuit after a very entertaining first session. But we've also got some historic F1 cars about to go out. There's Nicky Meyer-Melnhof checking his Facebook, no doubt, as he leans on the rear wing of his car. The 2013 spec Audi are running after switching to the 2012 spec for Navarra. So a superb venue here in Baku. Last night there was a street parade that headed into town, the flame towers really dominating the skyline, as I say. Let's have a little bit of a closer look at this city. Fantastic event here in Baku. There you can see the street circuit down below and the city in the far end. There you can see the hairpin on the left-hand side and the big Ferris wheel in the centre of this shoreline, which is getting redeveloped all through here, all the way down to the is essentially turn 13 of this circuit as the development continues around Azerbaijan, a city that is starting to make progress in the world because the Eurovision Song Contest was held in that very building, the Crystal Hall, that is down on the peninsula. And there out on the circuit is the ex-Arrows two-seater Formula One car. Thierry Boutsen is at the wheel, the man who was instrumental in putting this whole Baku street circuit together this season. Not sure who it is getting the ride in the back. Earlier on, it was the president of Azerbaijan. And then after this passenger ride, we'll have a few historic Formula One cars going out there as well, which is fantastic to see. And watched those from the pit wall earlier, and it was very exciting indeed. they then come down towards this hairpin, which is going to be a very good overtaking opportunity during the race. Thierry Boutsen had a lot of success in street circuits when his time in Formula One. Probably most famously, he picked up his second Formula One victory at the 1989 Australian Grand Prix in Adelaide. And that was the race where Ayrton Senna was leading the way, but crashed into the back marker Martin Brundle whilst he was trying to lap him. And as a result, retired from the race, allowing Boutsen to come through in the Williams to take the victory. Obviously raced on other street circuits as Thierry, such as Dallas and Long Beach, and all those classic street circuits of the 1980s until his retirement in that 1989 season. He does a few laps now up into this very tight little chicane that initially seemed to be like it was going to be a challenge for the drivers, but actually, having been out there and driven the cars around there, there's enough grip on the circuit for it not to be too much of a problem. Then they come up Mickey Yule, who's an off-street, who was an Azeri architect. The street is named after him. Take the left-hand turn down Agil Guliev Street before heading back out onto the glamorously named E119, back through this very quick right-hander at turn 10. We just turn our attention back to the FIA GT Series for a moment. One interesting point will be that race-by-race entries don't score points, teams or drivers, unless they've done the whole season. You won't score points, so that'll be very interesting when it comes to deciding the championship battle, because in theory, with 27 new drivers this weekend, in theory, Edward Sandstrom and Frank Stippler could finish, let's say, 7th and end up winning the race, in theory, with 25 points. As Thierry Boutsen then makes his way back out, and he's going to do another lap out there. The Belgian driver, successful in his time in Formula One. Coming through the first chicane. Raced for Arrows, Benetton, Williams, Ligier and Jordan. And, sorry, he retired in 1993. Having started out his career with Arrows, and he's in an ex-Arrows F1 car, two-seater. Nevertheless, but it's in the Lotus livery today. Started out with Arrows in 1983. Picked up his first podium again at the Australian Grand Prix in 1987 at the last Grand Prix of the season. The red flags out mean come in this lap, Thierry. So he picked up his first Formula One podium and his last second Formula One victory on a street circuit. His first Formula One victory also came at the Canadian Grand Prix, which also was very similar to a street circuit, and he's here this weekend, as I said, because he's part of the whole team that put this event together. And he'll be coming in this lap as some of the historic F1 cars are released from the pits. As he weaves through and down the hill towards the final corner, finishing his career with the Jordan team in 1993. Not picking up any points, unfortunately, in his final season. Where he was teammates with Rubens Barrichello for the majority of the season. He only did rounds 3 to 12. Boutsen, Ivan Capelli, Marco Apicella, Manuel Naspetti and Eddie Irvine also racing alongside Rubens Barrichello in that season. As into the pits comes Boutsen. Great to have him here, both as a driver, as a team principal for Boutsen Gignon Racing, and as part of the organisation team that have put together
Tell you
this
what, it's great
street
to
circuit.
see you in FIA GT, as well as having Porsche back again.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I've been looking forward to this one for some months now. Of course, with the date change. But yeah, it's been a little while since I've driven the Porsche, and last weekend, of course, we were in Macau in the McLaren, so just reacquainting myself to the car. Last time I drove this was in Super Cup in 2008. So yeah, a bit of redialing in, but I've got the perfect people around me in track speed, but Marco, Martin and Nick, of course, so we're learning.
Danny, first thoughts of this Baku street circuit?
Yeah, some parts are really good. Others, I think, need tweaking if we were to come back. There's turn 11 that you can straight line, and I think it's all down to who gets past the cameras without being spotted. You know, you can take a huge amount of speed through there. It's nearly flat. I think it will be. The grip is coming up immensely. Track evolution is just incredible. I can't believe it. You can really feel it as you're driving. You can see we're finding not just tenths, but actually seconds.
Now, I understand that that area of racetrack around turn 11, you've been brought in to see the headmaster and been given a sort of a literal spanking.
I have, yeah. That's the first time in my whole career I've had a black flag and had to see the stewards. Martin's already been up on the timing score. I did it, I went through once, only once. So I think I was taking a little bit of his rap, but I took it on the chin, and we'll move on and make sure we don't cut it in qualifying.
Not the first time you've been a naughty boy, Danny, is it?
At a racetrack, yeah, but normally it's at home.
Anyway, listen, I'm great to have Porsche back. Lovely to see you here, and have a good weekend.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Great to hear from Danny Watts then, with John Watson providing the leading questions. And there is the chicane that they were talking about. You can see it's, to get around it properly, you have to slow down quite a bit. But if you keep your foot flat to the floor, you can take it pretty much flat out. There we've got the historic F1 cars out on the circuit as they come through over the start-finish straight. And a real eclectic collection coming down into the first corner. We've got Fittipaldi's out there, Surtees out there, McLaren's out there, a couple of Williamses as well, and a couple of Arrows. It's really phenomenal to see these cars out here on the circuit. There you can see James Hunt's McLaren from 1976 just coming around the final part of the track. There's the Ligier from 1980, originally driven by Jacques Lafitte. The yellow flags are out to come through this right-hand section. The Ligier JS1115, to give it its precise name. Behind it is one of the early Williams cars. This is more of a, well, it is a demonstration run rather than a race for these guys this weekend, but it's still fantastic to see them out here and really thrilling the crowds in Baku. It sounds superb. A lot of these cars will have raced on street tracks in their time. The ones I mentioned earlier, the likes of Long Beach and Dallas and other such venues. They come under braking for the left-hander. Billy Ballio is out there in the Surtees, the T16 from 1974. Billy Ballio, an ex-Formula 1 driver, 116 Grand Prix starts to his name. As they come up, trying to find a little bit of room here and there. Chicanes of turns 15 and 16. Great to see them having a little bit of track time. That Ligier of Didier Bernie and Jacques Lafitte won the Belgian and German Grand Prix in 1980. The car that's out there sporting the number 25 colour. Designed by Gérard Ducarouge. And the Ligier team finished runner-up in the Constructors' Championship, their best ever result in Formula 1. There's also an Ensign out there, the N177 from 1977, driven by Clay Regazzoni, Jackie Ickx and Patrick Tambay. there is one of the two arrows. We've got the A4 and the A6 from 1982 and 1983 respectively. They wind their way out and then up into the old city. See the big grandstand down there. They're expecting some 30,000 fans this weekend, both in grandstands by the side of the track and probably hanging out of windows as the car just about gets stopped for the left-hander. It's David Abbott and Steve Hartley driving the two arrows. And there is the 1976 McLaren M26, which took part in the film Rush and took James Hunt more impressively actually to the 1976 Formula One World Drivers' Championship after that famous wet race at Fuji, where he just grabbed enough points to take the victory. Superb that these cars are still running and not in a museum. They're in a museum when they're not running, of course, but the fact that they're out on tracks around the world is a real treat. And especially for a country like Azerbaijan, which is starting to form its own motorsport history with events here in Baku. Last year they had the first ever motor race to be held in Azerbaijan, and now we're here with the FIA GT Series for a track with its own developing motorsport history to get a look back into some of the fantastic history of European and world motorsport is superb. As the McLaren pulls into the pits. The rest of the cars continue out there on the circuit. You can see the different design styles from varying different degrees. Surtees in particular. So back to FIA GT. John has managed to find Niki Meyer-Melnhof, who is going to be very quick this weekend, I think.
Niki, looks like you're right on it here this afternoon, but so is the Audi.
Yeah, I'm very surprised myself to see the Audis, or especially our Audi with René, who put out a spectacular time at the end with new tires now. I'm really surprised myself, but it's nothing in the bag yet. It's still a long race, and the track.
So we just lost Niki there for a moment, but hopefully we'll be able to get him back shortly. The historic Formula One cars are still out there on the circuit, but Niki Meyer-Melnhof surprised to be up at the front, and I think we're perhaps a little bit surprised as well. I hope that's not too harsh a thing to say, but certainly in free practice one, when Niki went quickest of anyone, we thought, oh, really? Because ultimately he is, I don't want to say an amateur because that sounds a bit harsh, but he's not far off. He started racing in 2008 in the GT4 European Cup, where he finished 9th. He then did FIA GT3 with Esberg in an Alpina and finished 27th. In 2011 he did FIA GT3, where he finished 8th with Reiter Lamborghini alongside Albert von Thurn and Taxis. But then his step up into GT1 in 2012 with the Vita1 BMW team and Matthias Lauda. He only picked up 2 podiums, which were both at the Slovakia ring, so it wasn't a superb performance from Niki so far in his career. But this year, being alongside René Rast, working with the WRT team, his performance has increased exponentially. Zandvoort earlier this season, where he was chasing down Stephane Ortelli, and he was keeping tabs on Stephane Ortelli and at times lapping a little bit quicker, which for him to be lapping at the same speed as the man who won Le Mans in 1998, who was the Porsche Super Cup champion in 2002, 3rd in Blancpain in 2011, and looks set, or looks to be on course anyway, to win the championship in 2013, was a very impressive performance from Niki. There you can see the Surtees TS9 from 1971 with Judy Lyons at the wheel. That's the blue number 2 car. You can see it almost looks like a early 70s Tyrrell, doesn't it? With that deep racing blue, kind of Tyrrell that Jackie Stewart took to victory in 1971, which would be his final season racing in Formula 1. Cars wind their way through the little dogleg chicane at 4, 5 and 6, and then turn right up Mikhail Fusanov Street. James Hunt McLaren's heading back out onto the circuit now. There is that Surtees from 1971 with Judy Lyons at the wheel. See coming through the chicane. Now that's how the chicane is, I suppose, meant to be taken. And they're going to get an awful lot of glare. That could be something that's very interesting in FIA GT qualifying. Whether that sun gets in their eyes, coming down to the hairpin, it might be difficult to judge your braking points. So that'll be something that's worth keeping an eye on. If going down into 13 we see a few people running wide because they are having trouble seeing where the corner is. The sun is still well above setting. You can see the 76 McLaren out there, not actually the most attractive McLaren of that era. The 1977 McLaren was actually, in my opinion, a little more attractive in terms of its aesthetics. But certainly it got the job done for James Hunt in 1976 with a few brilliant wins. But yeah, you can see the sun is still above the buildings, so we're not in danger of losing the light at all, but it's going to make things a little bit more challenging for the drivers, and it's going to be cooler as well, so we may not get down to the 43s, but you've got the offset of track temperature going down, but more and more rubber being laid. Because whilst these Formula 1 cars are out there, okay, they're not being pushed to the limit, and the tyres are probably pretty durable. They will be cleaning the track up, laying down a little bit more rubber. So we may well sometimes improve. So qualifying itself will start in 5 minutes' time for the FIA GT Series. So if you can keep watching these cool historic Formula 1 cars flash around a street circuit for a little bit longer, then you'll have time to watch some FIA GT Series action in a few moments, and what is going to be a frantic qualifying session, because it's only two 15-minute sessions, and with 27 cars on track, it's going to be a real challenge to find some space out there. Yellow flags being waved as the cars come through the dogleg section, which has always been the case with these F1 cars. It's not going to be the case, I don't believe, with FIA GT Series. They will remain out there and have the ability to race coming into that section of 4, 5 and 6. They come out through the right-hander now, through turn 10. And the red flags are out, which means your session time is over. Time to come back into the pit lane. And let's go back to GT land. And joining us is probably the man who knew most about those historic F1 cars, but we'll focus now on the Audis. You were talking to Nicky Melnoff, and he himself was surprised at his pace, which is good, because I felt a bit bad being so surprised at how quick he was, but if he feels it too, it's all right.
Well, he's obviously in a brilliant mood because of his performance, but the reason why I went up to Nicky to ask him a few questions was because just at the point I was finishing with Danny Watts, it caught Nicky's eye, and there was a couple of really gorgeous pit lane girls, you know, sponsored girls, and Nicky was all of us making, look at those two there. So I thought, I'm going to have you, sunshine. And then unfortunately technical issues interfered before I could get the question asked. But there we are, look at these Audis. Absolutely, well, performance, couldn't ask for better. 4 of them here this weekend, WRT, and they are performing. Like Nicky said, that, you know, the car, it's doing a great job, but they're not easy. I said, well, if you think your car is difficult, some of the others, I can assure you, are considerably more difficult. But they're in good shape. They did run a fresh set of tyres at the end of the session, which is in doubt now whether some of the time came, and there's a significant gain, he reckons, in a fresh set of rubber. But again, of course, the issues that are going to confront everybody is, first of all, the sun's dropping. Now, where the sun is in relation to the racetrack, probably not going to be an issue in terms of low in the sky and catching your eyes. The issue is going to be sun's dropping, so's the temperature. Track temperature has dropped down to 14. That was half an hour ago. 14 Celsius. Goodness knows what it is in this for the last 20 minutes.
Well, I was talking about that. I think it might be coming down into turn 13, the left-hand hairpin. I don't think that's going to be particularly good for the drivers.
It's not ideal. They'll have to use certainly reference points on the circuit to know where they are. If it does literally hit them right in the eye, and that's one of the quicker parts of the racetrack. But it's a very wide open part of the circuit. I mean, if you do make an error going in, there's room to recover. But of course, as a consequence, you will have lost time. And turn 13 as turn 3, both very bumpy. And Nicky's saying that, you know, trying to get in the bumps in the middle and then on the exit, particularly the exit out of turn 13, are hard to control. You've got to just keep the throttle. You might think you could give it more power. If you do, then you're going to hit your traction control, and that's going to, again, sort of slow you down marginally on the acceleration out of that corner.
So there is the Grasser Racing Lamborghini of Harry Prochik and Dominic Baumann being pushed out into the pit lane. And they are championship challengers in Pro-Am. Well, Harry Prochik is anyway. Sorry, because Dominic Baumann missed one of the races earlier this season, unfortunately for him. And Harry Prochik is still in contention, but Simonson and Afanasiev have done such a great job so far this season and so far this weekend that it doesn't seem likely that they will get outdone. So qualifying will be just 2 15-minute sessions, as we said, so the drivers will go out for the first session, driver 1 will, and then driver 2 will go out for the second session. The aggregate of those times will decide the grid for the race tomorrow morning.
Love it. When there's pressure, because of reasons that are beyond the control of the teams and whatever, in other words, you get a much more shortened qualifying session. It means that everybody's got to deliver. The focus is laser-like. So you go out, one little mistake means you are going to be penalised big time. So the pressure is on everybody within the team, but in particular with the two drivers. And again, this issue of going out onto the track, they've been, what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes since they were last on track. Track temperature will have dropped. The tyres on those historic cars, they're mostly Avon, which is a different construction and different kind of compound to that were being used by Pirelli. Shouldn't really be an issue, but it's just refamiliarizing with yourself with a circuit under pressure and knowing that you have got to deliver to ensure that you get your team and car onto the best grid position that is possible.
There you can see Dominic Baumann getting strapped in. This also means that normally it's up to the second driver to get the car through to the Super Pole session, and then you can choose who goes through to the Super Pole session. But this should, in theory, I think, mean that we get most of our quickest times coming in the second section, because the cars will be more full of fuel in the first sector.
Yeah, I mean, it's frankly, I think it's as exciting as the Super Pole situation that we always normally have. A great view of the modern end of the Baku and the infrastructure that comprises the seafront, or you might call it beachfront of this, the largest inland freshwater piece of water in the world. And anybody who's into fishing, if they can catch a sturgeon on there, I'll take the row, you can have the fish.
There's the BMW Team Brazil car, number 21 of Ricardo Zonta and Sergio Jimenez, but out onto the circuit then has gone Marcus Winkelhock, the first man out there. And it's great to see Vinky making his FIA GT Series debut this season. The 33-year-old from Stuttgart in Germany is the reigning FIA GT1 world champion with Al-Inkle Mercedes last year. He's also got a few Formula 3 Euro Series wins to his name, 3 wins in the World Series by Renault in 2005, behind Kubica and Adrian Valles, and 1 race in Formula 1, of course, at the Nürburgring back in 2007, where he led the race for a time, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, of course, his father, Manfred Winkelhock, great German race driver, also raced in Formula One, and tragically lost his life in an accident at Mosport in Canada in 1985. Very popular motorsport hero within Germany, and they do love their motorsport in Germany.
Absolutely. So many German brands as well on the list here. We've got Mercedes, we've got BMW, Audi, Porsche, of course, here this weekend as well. Through the right-hander then comes Nicky Katzberg in the number 4 Mark VDS. Now, coming down, that's going to be difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I think actually, as you come through turn 11 and 12, the sunlight's catching.
When you get here, it's not too bad.
No, it's not. It's on the way down, then all of a sudden these buildings are actually putting you back into the shade. It's really, I think, on the exit out of turn 10, where you're screened from the sun. All of a sudden, it's right in your eyes at turn 11, 12. But because everybody's effectively making a straight line of that part of the racetrack, it isn't a curve as such. All you have to be careful of is that you're not being seen as actually taking too much advantage. And as Danny Watts pointed out, he's only guilty of doing it once in his mind. It wasn't him. He got the penalty, but he feels he was only doing it once.
So there's Marcus Winkelhock then starting his hot lap, and he dives past the Nova driver Audi. God, we haven't actually mentioned much, but Cesar Campanico and Michael Lammermuller are out there on the circuit, and they're here this weekend, as they have been all season. And Winkelhock then will come through the first sector in quite a while. It's a long first sector, about 50 seconds long. He's got another Audi in front of him, the WRT Audi of Stephane Ortelli, who hopefully will get out of his way during this little back sector. Yes, he does, just about.
Yeah, well, you can just see how much concern there was from Winkelhock that he was on the headlights to make sure that Ortelli did get out of the way. Stephane Ortelli, of course, well experienced and knowledgeable about how not to impede another car, let alone one of your own teammates. Again, headlights are flashing the traffic as they go through turn 10, the long right-hand corner, then flick left, flick right, flick left, and well, nobody wearing a dark tinted visor naturally, because this is the only bit of the racetrack where the sun is going to affect you. Otherwise, you can see once you get into turn 13 just how much darker it is, and then you've got the sun behind your back as you climb all the way up this long straight up to the last minute chicane that was introduced really, I think, this morning due to the concerns of drivers and teams that the corner that they would be now approaching, there was the entrance to the pit lane. The wall was potentially a hazard that could not be changed to put the chicane in for safety reasons.
Here comes Marcus Winkelhock then through the final corner to do a 45.181. He was pushing very hard. I think he even clipped the wall coming down into the hairpin at turn 13. As now he skips over, and there you can see in the pits the 13 car of Sandstrom and Stippler that will be heading out onto the circuit soon enough. Nicky Katzberg comes across the line to do a 46.0. It's going to be a good 5 minutes, I think, before we get a real good look at who's done what and to whom. Frederic Verviche has gone purple in sector 1 in the 22 Boots and Gignon McLaren, but he's had a middle sector that's about half a second slower than Winkelhock. So that's the really interesting thing we're seeing here in Baku. More so, I think, than any other track, is different cars' strengths at different points in the circuit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key to that is the way the circuit is developing. It's changing really very, very quickly indeed, largely due to the amount of rubber going down and just simply cleaning up. And that's enabling drivers to push a lot harder. And they're noticing it almost, not, I shouldn't say by the corner, but certainly by the lap. And expect to see, with what, 8 minutes and a quarter remaining in this first of the 2 qualifying sessions, further improvements. And Marcus Winkelhock may well have to go out. He's on currently a lap which has got the fastest first and second sectors. He's not defending, he's attacking his current fastest time.
Yep, good stuff from Winkelhock then as he climbs the hill up towards the chicane of 14 and 15. Left and then right, and then back on the power and flat through the final corner. This left-hander at 16. This should improve his lap time and take him into the 44s, perhaps even into the 43s if he gets it really hooked up. A 43.3. Great lap from Marcus Winkelhock.
Quickest lap of the day so far, and great run by Marcus. Got a clear lap, and he'll be delighted with that. 2.1 seconds faster than Verviche in the McLaren, second quickest. So we're going to see now what will happen.
Oh, the door just opened on that McLaren.
I noticed that.
On that number 10 machine of Andy Zuber.
That's the pass with the offside. I'm going to say rear, but they don't have a rear, and I carried in before 12C.
I'm sure it did.
It did. No, you're correct. I saw just as it came down the hill into turn 9.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for that one. But there is number 9, Alvaro Parent, and he is chasing down the white MRS GT car of Andy Soucek and Oliver Turvey. It's car 44 that's got the door open, so it must have been that McLaren. Oh, there it goes. I knew I wasn't going crazy, so it's the 44 car, which is currently in the hands of Andy Soucek, that's got the door open, and he's trying to shut it by weaving.
Movable aerodynamic devices are
bad. No!
Oh, what's the back?
It's Maximilian Buch is in the tyre barriers, and he can't believe it. He's furious. He slams the steering wheel. Maximilian Buch has put it in the barriers on the exit of Agil Guliev Street, and he's furious.
Turn 9. Did something wrong, and what's happened to Winkelhock? Overran into turn 8, but he's got that time. Red flag has been waved.
Well, we thought this qualifying session might get a bit exciting, and Buch is, well, it's going to be difficult for Buch to reverse out, I think, because normally we've seen cars reverse out of the tyre barriers there, so he must have done something to it.
Sebastien Loeb, you can see the look in his face, and he's well,
8th quickest at the moment.
So we've got 6 minutes remaining, and Mercedes, I mean, I can't believe he couldn't reverse the car unless there's front suspension damage. We saw Alain Day get it all wrong in turn 3 earlier in the session, in the first pre-practice session, where he stuck it into the wall. And this time it's the left front that gets the damage. So these poor guys at HTP Gravity Charouz, a lot of work they've got on their hands tonight to get it straightened out a second time.
Maximilian Buch, a man who we actually have very rarely seen errors from so far this season. That man there is the Blancpain Endurance Series champion, despite being only 20 years of age. Turns 21 in 2 weeks' time, having won the FIA GT3 European Championship last year, finished 9th in ADAC Formal Masters in 2011, but he's really been impressive this season. Marcus Winkelhock, though, who is the quickest man of anyone so far in this session, a 1 minute 43.3, 2.1 seconds quicker than anyone else. Oh, there's Winkelhock trying to get past Alexander Sims, and you've got to have the help from the person you're trying to pass.
What we don't know was Sims, I'm assuming he was either on an out lap or an in lap, and in a sense it's incumbent on the driver if he was on one or the other. We don't know, it might have been a flying lap for all we know. So in that part of the racetrack, to be helpful, and in that case Marcus Winkelhock might well feel that that wasn't the case. So until we get an insight into that incident, just frustration for the German having to run down the escape road, and well, obviously his lap would have probably not been able to be completed because Buch had stuck it in the wall.
So that is going to allow Andy Soucek the chance to come back to the pits to shut his car door. And it depends how long it will be before they can move Maximilian Buch's car, because as we say, we've seen a couple of cars, frankly, go into that tyre barrier, reverse it out, and away they go. There you can see the 45 car, which is the TDS Racing BMW. They're here as reward for their performance in the Blancpain Endurance Series Pro-Am category this season. It's Henri Acide at the wheel. They, as you can hear, are making some changes. We haven't had everyone go out onto the circuit yet either, so there'll be some drivers who, well, in fact, there's an awful lot. You've got Buch, you've got Mermanov, you've got Stippler, you've got Zonta, you've got Tandy, you've got Raginger, none of whom have been out and set a lap.
And they've only got 6 minutes and 38 seconds in which to do it, so an out lap's going to be the best part of 2 minutes. They're going to have, at best, 2 flying laps before the checkered flag comes out. So from sitting what probably was relatively comfortably, there's a big switch change to those that rolled the dice and took the gamble on going out at the end of the session when the track was at its cleanest. Now everybody is going to be going out. It'll not just be those 7 cars.
But we saw Marcus Winkelhock, the first man out on the circuit. He and Sergei Afanasyev and Rob Bell are the only 3 drivers to have completed 3 laps. Everyone else had to abandon their second hot lap, whereas Winkelhock, Afanasiev and Bell managed to get 2 hot laps in, and so that shows you the benefit of going out early. And I think we may well see a bit of a scrabble once this session is about to get back underway.
Yeah, I mean, you see it happen in lots of race series that people, they sort of roll the dice and think that we've had a bit of a break, we're going to wait until the latter part of our session to go on the track, because that's when the track's going to be at its best. If you go out at the very early stages like Marcus Winkelhock did do, normally you wouldn't imagine the track's going to deliver its best time. Winkelhock has confounded everybody by doing that. Some might argue that, in fact, if Winkelhock had gone out at the very end of the session, had there not been this incident, he might have been even quicker. But those are the risks that people take, and the downside is when you come to a brand new venue, which happens to be a street track, and where you're going from narrow streets, you might say side streets, onto wide boulevard, maybe for the first qualifying round, you might go out a bit earlier. But then, you know, if we're all that clever, we wouldn't make mistakes in life, would we?
Another sermon from Mr. Watson. So Marcus Winkelhock, the quickest man in this session so far, and really the only man to have really posted the representative lap time, because he's 2.1 seconds quicker than anyone else. There's Cesar Campanico at the wheel of his Nova driver Audi, the Portuguese driver.
And just, you know, following on from the comment that you've just made about Marcus Winkelhock being, you know, 2.1 seconds, because WRT Audi team did run a fresh set of tyres on a number of their cars, I'm not sure all of them, but they had an insight into what to expect from that new set of tyres. So if you hadn't done that, or let's say the tyres that you were on were not as fresh as others were using, then when you go out in a fresh set of tyres, that in itself totally changes the characteristic of the car on the racetrack.
There is Frank Stippler sitting at the wheel of his number 13 Audi. It's a battle between him and Stephane Ortelli and Laurens Vanthoor for the Drivers' Championship in the FIA GT Series this season. There was car number 50, Philippe Sledecker. Claudio Stanisevich. My apologies. And the German driver is the gentleman. Federico Leo is the more professional alongside him, but they are in the Gentleman Trophy. There is Federico, the 2011 FIA GT3 European Championship winner, alongside Francesco Castellacci.
Do you know what I would do if I was a really mean team manager?
No.
And I was one of the 13 cars that had established time. I would make sure that those 13 cars that had established times were on the pit lane at the earliest convenience, to ensure that the remaining teams and drivers who hadn't secured a time find it extremely difficult. And no doubt we're going to see the best part of 26 or 27 cars all pounding round us, 6.5 minutes of the session to go, and there will be one winner in this session, and I can only imagine it's going to be Marcus Winkelhock.
We'll have to wait and see as the sun is just about to go down behind the hill here in Azerbaijan. We're a little distance from the proper mountains where you can go skiing and where they grow the grapes for their local wine, but nevertheless it's a big hill that goes pretty much all the way around the cove here.
If you look on screen there, you can see it. That is the old town of Baku, actually built on the side of the hill. This represents new money, new Baku, but new future, big future for this country, a part of the Caucasus, living on the side of the Caspian Sea, an amazing stretch of water. And so far, it's been a very, very positive experience.
So a little shot of Alexander Sims as the sun just disappears. Beautiful silhouette of the old city up on the top of the hill, looking down upon the Caspian Sea. There at the wheel of the 27 Hexes car is Rob Bell. He and Kevin Estre are going to be a very strong team this season, or this weekend I should say, and it will be the final race, we believe, of Hexes' international GT racing career, which is a shame because they've been a great team. They won the GT1 World Championship in 2011. They were very strong last year in the GT1 World Championship 2012, finished second, I think, in the championship, only a point behind the winners So a fantastic team, and it'll be a shame to see them disappearing.
Yeah, I mean, a history in GT racing, and they're still trying to get that Mercedes. I mean, that is a concern, because that's a good 15 minutes now since the incident occurred, and they still have yet to get the car lifted onto the back of the truck and returned to the pit lane. So that's going to be another 5 minutes minimum, probably in nearer to 10 before the track sees action. Well, I think they're struggling to get one of the ties around the front wheel of the car. They need to really pull the car back from the barrier before they can even begin to find a way to hoist it onto the back of the flatbed. Many hands make light work. Not enough chiefs, too many Indians there, I think, is the expression. So somebody's got to take control and get this situation sorted out quickly.
Well, I can hold the fort here if you want to go and sort them out.
I've given my opinion enough, I think, today. I've had a good old rant from time to time. We're just waiting for the tray that follows the Sundowners to come into the commentary booth.
So Maximilian Buch's car getting moved. There is Thierry Boutsen. We saw him doing quite a few laps earlier on.
I don't know what he eats, but I don't know a racing driver of his age whose hair is still so natural looking. But obviously it's clean living, he would say.
Yeah, no doubt. And Thierry Boutsen then we saw driving that two-seater Arrows. What if Thierry comes to you later and says, "Oh, Jean, would you like a go in the back of my two-seater F1 car?"
When I was in the pit lane, I saw Thierry and I walked up to him and I got one of the journals to give me a bit of paper and a pen, and I sort of said, excusez monsieur, autograph, autograph. And he didn't know who it was. So he signed an autograph and gave it back to me, and I said, "Oi, do you remember Canada 83? And he went, "Oh!" He bumped me in the shoulder, because in that Grand Prix I
Did you hit him?
No, I didn't hit him, but we got close. I had a carbon fiber brake on the car. It was the first season of carbon fiber brakes. Wore the disc out, but almost to a point where the pistons and the calipers were falling out. And the front right or front left, I can't remember which it was, literally pulled the car towards Thierry. He was a young guy at that stage. He thought I was being aggressive, and it wasn't something I did deliberately. It was only for the last point in the race, but it was something he's never forgotten. And he's here, of course, in his capacity within Baku. He's got business interests here. Currently his occupation is he sells executive aircraft to owners that want to buy executive aircraft. Clearly still fit and able to jump into that two-seater car. And I think it was the president of the Republic that he drove around a number of laps in a two-seater. Now there we see the car finally getting it up, but it looks, I can't say if I was the owner of that car I'd be very happy. It doesn't look like the, come on, get it up. Of course, the weight distribution you can see in the Mercedes slightly forward, because the engine is not a front engine, it's well back in the chassis, but nonetheless the predominance of the weight distribution is to the fore.
So,
but just thinking about Thierry Boutsen, and 3 Grand Prix wins here driving the two-seater based on an Arrows Formula One car from the early part of the 20s or the noughties. And it's been used, I think, a number of occasions. And in fact, if you want to hire it, Jack, if you'd like to hire it,
take me round.
No, Jack, if you'd like to hire it and drive me round.
Yeah, we'll see. That would be an interesting one. So they've got Max Buch's car onto the back of the flatbed. Frankly, it doesn't look like there's much damage, really. I'm surprised that unless the front left suspension's a bit out of kilter and he felt he couldn't drive it back around. We will be staying with you for the remainder of this qualifying session. So hopefully you can stay with us, and we can see who will take pole position for the first FIA GT Series race on the streets of Baku, the first FIA GT Series street race, actually. And that'll be very entertaining tomorrow. Both races coming up tomorrow at 9 o'clock local time and then 1 o'clock local time. The lights have been turned on in this lovely area on the Caspian seafront. You can see a few people heading home, a few people just arriving to have a little look about what all this noise is about. And you can see the run up from turn 9 up towards turn 10.
You know, the first reaction I had when I came to Baku and saw how the racetrack looks at night time, this would be, to me, an absolutely no-brainer of a venue to hold a sort of late evening nighttime race. It would be spectacular, particularly with the seafront, the lights, the buildings all around. It is just made for an evening race, and that's something I hope that maybe in future events here that the organisers might even consider, as opposed to just running as we would normally do here for the first time in daylight hours. I suppose in the first event, probably easier to do so just to get the experience of running an event, and but certainly looking, and there is a view, I mean, absolutely mirror cam, and you can see the reflections of all these buildings in the water. I mean, it almost brings a sort of a, you know, an emotional tremble to my voice.
6 minutes and 38 seconds remaining in the session then, once it gets back underway, and there will be a huge scramble of drivers trying to get out there because there's some quick drivers in the field. It's no use going, okay, well, this session's gone, we'll just bank it all on the second qualifying session and our second driver. You can't afford to do that, as they release now the lifting arms. So hopefully that flatbed will pull away. But that's a good example. Frank Stippler, I mean, him and Edward Sandstrom are very evenly matched, but there's every chance that Stippler could be the man who's quicker than Sandstrom today, and he needs to set a lap time.
Well, those that haven't been out and set a lap time must be sitting there concerned, because those that have been out, the 13 that have been out, they have got every entitlement to go out and try and improve their times. And I'm talking about from Vervish in second place on a 1:45.4 all the way down to 13th place on a 2 minutes and 5. So, I mean, there's 12 cars that haven't really set a representative time of the 13 that went out before the session was halted, and there's another 13 that have still got to set any sort of time.
So now Maxi Buch's car is being reversed away, and the problem they're going to have as well, presumably, is that they won't be out. Actually, this is probably the most important thing. Because of that car being reversed to where it will be, it won't be out for the second session either. So Alan Day won't have a chance to qualify. So that number one car will start from the back of the grid, surely.
I don't know if that's going to be the case for sure. It's an interesting hypothesis to consider, whether the car can be brought back in the period. I think there's a 7-minute break between the end of this session, the natural end of this session, and the start of the second qualifying session. But whether the car can be returned in time, and assuming that there isn't any fundamental damage, we don't know.
Now here they go. The session will restart in 10 seconds time, they've just been told, so I'm expecting to see the cars fire up and absolutely leg it to the exit of the pit lane, because the track has gone green now, and it'll be very busy coming past our commentary box window. Sergei Afanasiev is the first man to head out onto the circuit in that number 2 white and red HDP Gravity Charouz car. And the rest of the field streaming out.
You know, it's a no-brainer. Everybody is going to go out. The only person that can afford to have a luxury of doing nothing is Marcus Winkelhock, who did a stunning time. Quickest time we've seen so far all day here on the Baku street track. 1:43.3, 2 seconds quicker than Verdish in the second place McLaren.
You might be able to get 3 flying laps out of this if you're right at the front. If you're in the mid-pack, you'll probably only get 2. If you're towards the latter end of the people who've just gone out, you might only get 1 flying lap. Such is the time push here, because it'll take you 2 minutes to do your out lap, and then plus some if you need to find some space.
I mean, the space is going to be the key, because look, traffic all over the place. Yeah, McLaren trying to dive down the inside to make space for itself, and of course not going to be able to do it into turn 8. Comes down the hill into turn 9. Because
Nicky Katzenberg is trying to make some space for himself.
For himself, exactly. And this is the situation that everyone is going to have to deal with.
So here is the Boots and Gignon McLaren with Frederic Vervish diving past Sergei Afanasiev. Both of those drivers have set a lap time already, not particularly representative. Afanasiev down in the 49, so 6 seconds off the pace, so he has set a lap time, but it doesn't really count. They climb out the hill with less than 5 seconds to go in Q1.
Remember,
5 minutes to go.
Tyres also, temperatures have dropped off the radar, tyre pressure dropped off the radar. You know, you've got to get that temperature build up and your ride height back to the operating level that you'd like it to be. So you've got to be cautious. The car's going to feel uncomfortable. You might try and drive through the problem, but in doing so you might cause yourself an issue by just trying too hard with a car that isn't quite right.
So Frederic Vervish dives through the first sequence of corners, the man who has been so impressive this season in the Blancpain Endurance Series. Stamps on the brakes, the nose of the MP412C dives down. out of the hairpin at turn 3. We don't get his first sector time until he's coming down Agil Guliev Street into turn 9.
Well, that first sector time is 1 minute and 7 seconds, so anything near to that is going to be a result I would have thought for Radish.
That will have been his outlap, probably. I'd have thought as he comes through now, we're going to get a representative time for Vervish, so he needs to be in the 52s, really, if he wants a good one. 52.599, so that's solid so far.
Yeah, but it's within just over half a second. So it consolidates his position currently as second quickest. Of course, we've got 3.5 minutes of the session remaining. He's going to finish this lap, start another lap, and he might, as you say, suggest sneak a third flying lap.
That's got to be the aim probably for Vervish as he comes through the left-hander now. Turn 13, what's his middle sector looking like at 18.1? Marcus Winkelhock's gone purple in the middle sector, so Winkelhock might go even quicker here, which would be absolutely phenomenal from the German. This is a really impressive performance from Marcus Winkelhock because he was the first man out on the circuit, so that kind of gave him an advantage, but here he's got no advantage. He's in the middle of this pack. Vervish comes across the line to do a 44.6, but where is Marcus Winkelhock? Will he put in a good lap time? Here he is coming towards the final corner. It doesn't look as though he's had to deal with any traffic. Winkelhock comes through the left-hander and across the line. Is it an improvement on 1:43.3? It's a 1:45.9. That middle sector was a catastrophe. He lost 3 seconds. Must have been trying to get past that Porsche.
Nick Tandy.
Nick Tandy comes across the line in the track speed Porsche, my apologies, to go second quickest. Vervish then drops to third quickest. Here are the two WRT Audis trying to wind their way through some traffic. Up in front is the 13 car of Stippler, and behind him is Nicky Meyer-Malnoff. The two of them have been running nose to tail through the entirety of this lap. I think they're both on their... I don't know, they've had slow first secters,
well,
like 10 seconds off the pace.
They've done a timed lap, but they've been slow laps. So this ought to be a much quicker lap from both those Audis. Remember, Stippler, the car shared by Edward Sundstrom, that's going to take a 5-grid penalty drop. So whatever they do now, it's going to be absolutely mega. Winkelhock on his first sector on this flying lap, fastest of anybody again.
He's still 1.3 seconds clear of the field, Marcus Winkelhock. The two Audis have gone across the line with enough time to do this lap, plus another flying lap, most likely. Current lap for car 50 will be deleted for the track limits. That's Claudio Stanisvich, who is the slowest of any driver, so not really a big drama for Stanisvich. Here we're watching Alexander Sims, currently 4th quickest in the Boots and Gignon McLaren. Will he improve? He's done personal best in sectors 1 and 2, and he jumps up to second position. Oh, and there's drama for Patrick Kuna. Sorry, it's Matej Stump at the wheel, but we've got less than a minute to go, so that'll be the end of the session. I wouldn't be surprised. Alexander Sims jumped up into second position. My apologies, not third position. It was Vervish who went across the line at the same time and moved up into third place. There'll be yellow flags out there at turn 9, so this will ruin everyone's lap. They're waving the red flag there, but I don't think the red flag is out.
It's not.
Well, yes, it is now. It is now.
Yeah.
Red flag is out as Winkelhock comes across the line to do faster still. 1:43.062. Superb masterclass from Marcus Winkelhock to go quickest in Q1 and provisionally set the pole position time.
I mean, a brilliant drive all through the session. A broken session because of the Maximilian Book incident down at turn 9. We've now got the Lamborghini in the same corner, in the same situation, but Winkelhock. Alexander Sim, also superb effort, 3/4 of a second slower than the Audi driver, but a good drive by the young Brit to put himself provisionally onto the front row of the grid. Enzo Ide, he looks pretty happy with life. But turn 9 really is turning out to be the problematic corner on the circuit after all. Simple corner, but if you brake too late, you just lose your braking, and all you do is become a passenger and you slide into that tire barrier protecting the cockpit.
Absolutely. So real troubles at turn 9, which means that the session is brought to an abruptish end. But we were at the end of the session anyway. Hopefully we can be a little bit quicker collecting this Lamborghini than we were with the Mercedes.
Why would they? They've only got one pickup truck.
But maybe they've learned how to do it now.
Yeah, but they've still got a Mercedes on that truck.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
So they've got to dump that back unless they can get another truck from another location on the circuit to come and pick up the Lamborghini. It may be that Lamborghini can be driven back to the pits. We don't know that, but I might be getting my wish. We might be seeing a nighttime qualifying session here because the light's falling fairly rapidly. Local time is only 10 past 5. The light's going quicker than I can.
So the cars make their way back into the pit lane. Marcus Finkelhock, the quickest man in that session. I mean, really impressive stuff from Finkelhock to be 0.7 of a second clear in a field like this. He has just gone out there, absolutely nailed it. There's his teammate Enzo Ede, as you say, looking very happy.
But what sort of pressure is Enzo under now?
But does he have any pressure because his teammate's done such a fantastic job?
Yeah, but he's a racing driver. He doesn't want to find out that he's 3 seconds a lap slower. I mean, you've got your ego, your pride, your macho, all that stuff. You know, you've got to go out and deliver. And there's no question, as great a driver as Enzo is, he has dropped the ball a few times. And Marcus has done a brilliant job. Absolutely stunning and looked completely in control at every point of the track.
So there, out of the race is Matthias Stumpf, who was certainly not in control, and he's gone in quite hard because he's actually damaged the car. I'm sure there was damage to the number 1 machine, but you can see the steam coming up. There's some radiator issues there, isn't there?
Yeah, there'll be a damage to one of the coolers, no doubt. It'll be the water radiator and bodywork damage and whatever else is hidden behind. I mean, it's principally superficial. Great, look at that. Lovely to see praise given where praise due. And that's what teams love to see. That's what teams love to see. One of their drivers, Enzo, delighted to have Marcus in the car alongside him this weekend and doing a brilliant job. Everybody's saying, well done, mate.
And it's great because Phoenix have struggled this year. There's no doubt about it. Certainly in FIA GT, they haven't performed as they would have liked. Been slower than WRT all season, really. And in the Spa 24 hours as well, especially. And at Paul Ricard, I remember, with Ollie Jarvis and the like at the wheel, they got in, you know, proper good drivers, but just couldn't find the speed. Whereas now, quickest in the final race of the season for Winkelhock and Ede.
Again, it's not a downforce circuit. It's not a circuit that's, you know, ultimate high speed where drag, all those factors come into play. It's a street track. And fundamentally, all you've got to do is make the car stop, turn, accelerate. You know, you're not concerned about 190 mile an hour, you know, on the edge corners where another 15% downforce is going to make it stick or not stick. You know, it's just about low speed tracks and getting traction, grip, and having stability under braking.
Well, they've pushed the Lamborghini of Matthias Stumpf off the racing line and off the track, more importantly. And the Brazilian driver looks to be okay, but his car, unfortunately, isn't, and he's just broken it a bit more.
Well, it's only another £10,000 replacement parts, and you know.
The second segment of qualifying will start in just 3 minutes' time at 17:19 local time, so we'll be getting the racing back underway very, very soon. As Matthias Stumpf takes off his helmet.
Interesting, the visor thing he's got says real driving on it. I wonder, does that come with the shunt to real driving and shunt? Are the two things one and the same, or is that just me being a bit unkind? A young man, you know, he's obviously upset by what he's done. Emotions are high. Of course, another racing driver wearing an earring, which probably had something to do with the balance of the car, maybe a little bit too much weight transfer from left to right.
Well, he's been doing well so far this weekend, him and his teammate Patrick Cunha. They were 6th in GT4 Brazil last year, and he also competed in Spanish GT with Rui Lapa in a Ford GT. They started this season in a Ford GT, and they were in fact Brazilian GT champions back in 2010 and 2011 in a Ford GT. So he knows his way around a Ford GT, but a new Lamborghini for the second half of the season, and they've been performing strongly. The 24-year-old from Caxias do Sol.
Yeah, no, him and he's done a good job, and I'm being a little bit unkind, but that is the concern, because it looks like maybe it was more than water that punctured it. Probably was oil.
If it was difficult before this corner.
Well, I was just going to say, it would be nice if somebody had something more than your daily lady cleaning brush. We need something a bit more adept.
He's got his boot.
Yeah, he probably has been watching too much football, thinking that little sort of right kick get the curl. You know, he's been watching David Beckham probably too much.
So the sun beginning to go down here in Azerbaijan, and here's a look at the results for the first section of qualifying. Marcus Winkelhock, a superb performance from him, 7/10 of a second quicker than Alexander Sims. Frederic Vervisch finishing third quickest, which is very good news. Nick Tandy and Marco Holzer fourth quickest, with Rob Bell and Kevin Estra in fifth place. Stephane Ortelli sixth quickest, snuck in there, not bad, but I'd say apart from Winkelhock and Sims, it's all going to be about this second session, because I don't think people really got the chance. But then, having said that, we might well have the same situation. We could have another 8 cars in the tyre barriers, and red flags aplenty. But despite all these incidents we've seen, we have only lost 1 car of the 28, which is the Jeroen Bleekemolen Corvette, and that still might be back tomorrow, but we'll have to wait and see. Further down the order, we've got Henri Acide and Anthony Beltoise finishing in 15th place. Sima Testump was there in 13th position. Although, in theory, I think Patrick Kuna probably should have been in the car, actually, because he was the designated driver 1, but that's a different story. Andy Soucek will be disappointed with 20th position. He's a McLaren master, but because of the door problems and other issues in that session, he could only manage 20th quickest. Peter Chirou's slowest man of all.
Oliver Turvey will be in that car, and Oliver is somebody who is a major part of the McLaren young driver program. He spends an enormous amount of time doing testing and development work back in the simulator at Woking, and he's delighted to be in a GT McLaren for the first time in quite a long time as a race driver. So I'm looking to see what Oliver can deliver. We've seen a great job by Alexander Sims, another young McLaren part of that training program. But here we see all the cars going out, lights blazing. I hope they've all been set up for nighttime driving, not just there as a token gesture to the regulations.
But the great news for Frederic Vervisch is that his teammate Stoffel Vandoorne is the first man out on circuit. The McLaren young driver will be out there with his lights ablaze in the number 22 Boots and Gignon McLaren MB412C. Who else to look out for in this session? Well,
Sebastien Loeb.
Exactly, Andreas Simonsen is out there. Mike Parisi finished that second free practice session in second position, so he's got some pace as well. Laurence Vanthor will be out in the number 11 Audi. It's going to be absolutely superb, because this is going to be the battle for pole position. This is your last chance to get it done. The time to aim for is Marcus Winkelhock, a 1 minute 43.062. They need to beat that to take pole position. But these cars will be lighter, but the track conditions will be cooler. It's getting darker as well. There's also a chance of losing time here, although it's not quite on the racing line.
It isn't, but if anybody gets close to it, then it's only going to exaggerate the potential of hitting the barrier. And unfortunately, they didn't have the equipment at that part of the racetrack to clear away what you might call speedy dry that's been put down to clear up the fluids. Principally, I suspect that's been oil rather than water.
Kevin Estra trying to find some room for his qualifying session as they all drop down through the left-hander at turn 13. But it's Stoffel Vandoorne who's the first man out there on the circuit. Up the hill towards the chicane of 14 and 15, and he's got plenty of space in front of him, obviously, and everyone pretty much is out on track.
Interesting, Vandoorne did something I haven't seen anybody do. He braked actually earlier than you would normally do in a flying lap to ensure that he got the hard drive he needed off that chicane, rather than coming into it on the nose, dancing the car through. Interesting, a young man using his brains to try and max out the acceleration out of that chicane down the start, finish straight, and then down to turn 1.
It's actually Boots and Gignon first and second on the circuit at the moment, so that's Steph Dusseldorp behind in the 15 car as they come down the left-hander, and those are the second and third place cars from the first qualifying segment. So good stuff for Boots and Gignon this weekend. Really great to have them here in the FIA GT Series, and they're performing strongly.
The reason they're performing strongly is they've got 2 little hot rods, and that makes a big difference. You bring in that young talent, hungry, quick, naturally, don't have to go through the whole build-up process. And some of them have been racing in the car, not necessarily in GT, but in Formula 3, and their whole body mental process is right up to speed.
Vandoorne is brushing every apex. It's superb to watch on the inside of turn 8, then on the inside of turn 9. 53.351 in the first sector isn't amazing. Steph Dusseldorp's gone quicker, in fact, with a 53.187. But nevertheless, it'll take a couple of laps for them to really get down to it.
And Dusseldorf quickest in that second sector. Not as spectacular as his young co-teammate, but actually delivering more. Now he's more familiar with the car, but nonetheless, the slightly older but still very young Steph Dusseldorf is the one of these two McLarens that's actually getting the job done.
So Van Dorn braking heavily coming into that final chicane, so I think this will be a slow final sector for Van Dorn to then get on it. I imagine these first laps through will be maybe 44s, 45s before we get down into the 43s. That's a 46.6 for Dusseldorf and Van Dorn. So this will be very interesting.
Long way away from what we saw. And look at the Van Dorn really sliding the tail of that McLaren through the exit of turn 2. As he runs down the hill, go back to Mercedes. 90th, climbing up the hill out of turn 13.
Out there also we've got Mike Parisi. Benji Hetherington has just gone quickest of anyone, a 45.660. I'm wondering if, because we've lost the sun, is the track going to be noticeably slower? We'll have to wait and see.
No one's told Laurens Van Thor fastest, or he was fastest overall in that first sector.
But now it's Sandstrom.
Hetherington quickest overall,
yep.
1:45.660.
Up into the chicane comes Laurens Van Thor. Where's this going to put him up to? Comes through the final corner at 16. It'll be a 44, I think, a 44.444, all the fours, and he goes provisionally quickest, and that's a good lap time from him. That would put him up in 4th position on the grid provisionally at the moment. So any thoughts that the track is slowing down is going to be about to be rebutted by René Rast, because he's gone purple in sector 1 and purple in sector 2. The young German is about to come across the line to presumably go quickest if he's kept it all together in the final sector. He hasn't.
Why did he lose time in that
5
final
seconds.
sector?
5 seconds. Must
That
be traffic.
Absolutely traffic, or a mistake, but he's had to bail out of it massively. I mean, potentially the quickest of all, first, second, and then that big 5-second drop off in that final sector.
So we're watching Sebastien Loeb out there on the circuit. Steph Dusseldorf jumps up to second quickest, but no one yet is anywhere near Marcus Winkelhock on a 43.0. They're both 1.4 seconds off the pace as Loeb flies through that chicane at 11 and 12. He's done a 52.7 in sector 1, which is about 7/10 of a second slower than he needs to do. Now he comes into the hairpin.
Just looking down right at the bottom of the timing and scoring of Aeropren. Well, he's keeping an eye on his team boss as well as his co-driver, but Enzo Eid, who we saw, co-driver to Marcus Winkelhock, he has done 2 laps, just an out and in lap. I don't think he's going to bother doing a time. He's just going to rely on the fantastic result that Marcus Winkelhock got in that first qualifying segment of 43.062.
Kevin Estra jumps up into second position, a 1:44.787, which is quicker than his teammate Rob Bell managed. But now Maxime Martin goes quickest in this session. That puts him in 3rd place overall, that lap time of 44.184. Good lap from Martin. That would see him start 3rd on the grid if things remain the same. Here comes Laurens Van Thor. No improvements in sectors 1 or 2. Cars 3 and 5 have just had their lap times deleted, so that's Enzo Eid and Jarek Yanis, so nothing particularly noteworthy. Sebastien Loeb just did the fastest final sector of anyone, has jumped up into 3rd position in this section.
One of the BMs did
that's Maxime Martin, I think.
No, it might have been. It's one of the BMs certainly made a shortcut through entry into turn 4, so that lap will be deleted. That's lost time. 7 3/4 minutes remaining.
And all drama for
Dominic,
for Harry Procik. That's up at turn 8. So Harry Procik's made the mistake coming down Mikhail Usanov Street. And he's managed to keep it all together and not cause too much drama around him, which is good to see. It was the number 4 car of Maxime Martin who cut the chicane. That's the car we're watching there, so this lap won't mean anything for Martin. René Rast has gone quickest, a 43.178, so finally he's a man close to challenging Winkelhock's time. Rast is only a 10th of a second behind Winkelhock.
And that is a stunning run from René Rast, and Marcus Winkelhock, his glory has now been challenged. Enzo Eid sitting in the pits, well in fact Enzo Eid has gone out, but he's only done a 1:45.8, and I don't anticipate Enzo Eid is going to be anywhere near the pace of co-driver Winkelhock or René Rast for that matter. Maxime Martin further second behind, second in this session, 3rd overall No, not third overall. It's Sims. Alexander Sim is second. Third overall in the minute.
We just saw the replay of Harry Prochik flying off down there at turn 8, but he's back out on the circuit now. And not only that, he's just had his time deleted for track limits. So here on the circuit is the 13 car we just saw of Edvard Sandström, only 9th quickest for him. René Rast has gone purple in the first sector. His middle sector is very slow though, 4 or 5 seconds off the pace, unfortunately. Here he comes, and so he will get another shot at it, but you don't want to use up the best of your tyres. That's going to be a concern as well as Rast comes through. No improvement here, look at that, way off. 11 seconds off, but he's found himself some clear air. That's the crucial thing.
Absolutely, he's got the clear, relatively speaking. This first leg of the track down to turn 3, the first hairpin then is clear for René Rast. This is a long first sector on this 4.3 kilometre race track, so he hopefully will make up the time. Look at the brakes, you can see now in this twilight just how much load these carbon fibre brakes are having to deal with. Glowing cherry red, then hard on the brakes again into turn 4, then right with 5, and 5 really is 1 corner 6. Then you accelerate hard off the dual carriageway onto the old roads, up through turn 7, onto the slippery run up into turn 8, easy to overrun the corner, so close to the barrier on the inside, runs the barrel on the outside of turn 8.
Here he comes then, first sector time for René Rast. It's purple, this is looking good for René as he comes now into the very fast right-hander at turn 10. Listen to this. No hint of a lift as he comes flashing around through the chicane, gets the wheel over the white line, which is good, as he now comes down the hill towards the left-hander of 13. His middle sector as well is the fastest of anyone. He's 0.3 of a second up on his time. This would put him on provisional pole position. René Rast, Porsche Super Cup champion from a few years ago, is absolutely superb at the moment.
And you'd hear the car actually bottoming out in turn 13 as he went over the bumps and hard on the brakes as he comes to this final segment of 2 corners 15 and 14-15, and then flat out everything you can give that V10 520 horsepower Audi engine as it comes across start finish line. You've got to beat a 43.062, 42.675. He's obliterated it.
Unbelievable time from René Rast as he comes across the line for the WRT Audi squad. Absolutely superb performance from the 3-time Porsche Super Cup champion, 2010, 11 and 12. René took home that title and he's showing exactly why with a wonderful performance. Out there on the circuit now, personal bests all the way through for Caca Bueno, the Brazilian driver who's won the Brazilian Stock Car Championship more times than anyone else in history. He comes across the line and that puts him only up into 9th position. René Rast has just taken provisional pole position, and really he's a second clear of Laurens Vanthoor in second place, so it doesn't look like anyone is going to be able to stop the German at the moment. Who else have we got out there on the circuit then? This is Mike Parisi, 4th quickest at the moment, 1.4 seconds off René Rast.
Big disappointment will be Edvard Sandström, only currently 10th position, 1:44.8. They need to get their car, Frank Stifler and Sandström need to get that car up to the front. Bearing in mind they're going to take a 5-place penalty drop because of an incident that occurred at this part of the racetrack in the first unofficial practice session.
Maxime Martin has had his lap time deleted for cutting the track. Here's Laurens Vanthoor then. He's done personal best middle sector, but his first sector's nowhere at all. So this will be it for Laurens Vanthoor. He and also Edvard Sandström are in some clear air. There goes Vanthoor with Sandström behind. And as you say, they really need to climb up the order, although one-off entries, for example, Maxime Martin, Kevin Estre and the like, won't score points, so that'll be something to take into account during the races tomorrow. But here then is the 13 car of Edvard Sandström. He's currently at a 1:44.663. Quickest time of anyone is a 42.6 for René Rast, with Marcus Winkelhock currently lining up second on the grid after his time in Q1, which was a 43.0.
Steph Dusseldorf has improved up to 4th place behind Mike Parisi. George McLaren presently in this qualifying 3rd and 4th. And Maxime Martin drops down to 5th with Laurens Vanthoor in 6th place.
This is spectacular. This is
fantastic.
Absolutely superb.
This is what we should be doing. Look at the vista over the city and the racetrack.
I'm sure Edward Sandstrom's glad they got that headlight fixed now after it was damaged in the incident this morning. Vanthor's first sector is a 52.2, which just isn't good enough. He's going to lose out of position to Mike Parisi if he's not careful, because Parisi's done a personal best in sector 1. He's just done a poor middle sector as Parisi, and Vanthor going very wide. Rast is still on it. Rast has done a personal best, a best of anyone in sector 1, 51.227. As Vanthor climbs the hill. What's Sandstrom's lap like behind him? It's not bad for Sandstrom. This might get him up towards the top 5, closer to the top 5, as Vanthor comes around the final corner now, and this will be no improvement from him across the line, and he remains in second position. But will Sandstrom improve as he comes through? No, he doesn't. A poor final sector. He stays in 9th position. But here's René Rast. What's his middle sector time like? Pretty decent.
Yeah, it was just fractionally down. May have been a little bit of traffic, we don't know.
Can he find more time? Here he comes across the line. René Rast goes quicker still. 1:42.551. Unbelievable stuff from Rast. He's overcooked it going into the first chicane, but it doesn't matter. He has pole position, no doubt about it, for the qualifying race in Baku tomorrow morning.
And that's over a second quicker than Laurens Vanthoor in the sister car. And you know, Laurens Vanthoor is as quick as it gets in an Audi. Again, everybody now just opting to ignore the chicane, only 17 seconds remaining on both two cars, McLaren and Ferrari, both making their way back into the pits. So this is Lamborghini. Well, Jimenez actually gets up to 9th place in the BMW, 44.5, but almost 2 seconds. I mean, that's an amazing gap between 1st and 9th place. Testament to the pace, the outstanding virtuoso performance of René Rast to put that car unchallenged. We thought Marcus Winkelhock had got it cracked on the 43.062. Well, that's half a second away from the time of his colleague René Rast.
Superb performance from René Rast. The checker flag is out. There are drivers still on the circuit. Are any of them going well? Not really. There's Alvaro Perón watching on. His teammate Sebastien Loeb is qualified in 6th place, which might be 7th or 8th come the conclusion of the session. Here comes Edward Sandstrom through the final corner. Any improvement for Sandstrom as he takes the checkered flag? Yes, but it leaves him in 10th position. Danny Watts unfortunately had a bit of a problem. He's down in 23rd place. I'm not sure what happened to Danny in that session, in that Porsche, after you spoke to him in the break.
No, I think he was explaining that he hasn't actually been in a Porsche for about 4 years. He's driven other forms of GTs, other forms of sports cars, but anyway, whatever Danny's issues are, it's a disappointment. He's capable of dragging a performance out of any race car, and is a very competitive guy.
So into the pits come the cars after a very exciting qualifying session.
And doesn't night time really suit this circuit? Fantastic.
It's absolutely superb. So there is Enzo Eid coming in. He did go out just for the fun. And there's the MRS GT car of Oliver Turvey. Where did he end up? 12th place for Oliver Turvey. And I mean, I said this when we were coming here. We're going to see some kind of incomprehensible results because of the strength of the field. You know, I said we were going to see some drivers that will think, what on earth? You know, Benji Hetherington, quickest man of anyone at certain points in this session, very quick in the Fortec Mercedes. Great team, great car. 17, just ahead of Marco Holzer. But look at this, look at these.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, but you know, drivers of René Rast or Marcus Winkelhock's ability, they are familiar with these cars. They are outstanding drivers in cars that are, in relative terms, low downforce cars. You bring a driver into this race series who's come from a high downforce single-seater package or a high downforce Le Mans type style sports car. It is quite difficult because all of a sudden the car feels like it's not planted. And if you become accustomed to that style of car, to go to a low downforce car, it takes a lot of time to adapt, and in particular on these sort of street tracks where the grip is naturally at a lower level than of a permanent racetrack.
So there is René Rast. Congratulations all around. Pierre Dieudonné very happy with that.
Can I do my Christian Horner impersonation? Congratulations, Rene, you've done a fantastic lap. You've got the pole position.
Here's a look at the results from qualifying 2. It will be René Rast and Nicky Melnoff starting the race tomorrow on pole position. But second on the grid will be Marcus Vingelhock and Enzo Ede in the number 5 Audi from Phoenix Racing. Alexander Sims will be starting third on the grid. Him and Steph Dusseldorp doing a great job, with fourth on the grid Mike Parisi and Andreas Zuber out-qualifying their teammates. You're seeing here the results of the qualifying 2 on the screen, and it will be the combined results of 1 and 2 that will be confirmed in a few moments' time, but that's my particular take on it. They'll be confirmed when we're off air, so that's a basic idea of what will be the case. Rast on pole, Vingelhock second, Sims third. There you can see Enzo Ede 15th quickest in that second qualifying session, 2.5 seconds slower than his teammate, so that's going to be interesting because I think Ede will be the man starting the race tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see if he can start second on the grid, and that is going to be crucial in a big grid such as this, as we see the 25th qualifier, the number 77 MRS GT racing car of Ilya Melnikov. Hopefully we'll have 28 cars out on the grid tomorrow, but even if we only have 25, that's still a very impressive entry as the lights come on the Crystal Hall. A reminder of how the championship standings look going into tomorrow, the final day of the FIA GT Series. Ortelli and Van Thor lead the championship, but Edward Sandstrom and Frank Stifler are only 5 points behind. And with that pole position, if it all goes right, Nicky Melnoff still has an outside chance of getting in there. But it is a superb performance from René Rast to take pole position here in Azerbaijan for the first FIA GT Series visit here. It started off in the daylight, the Baku World Challenge qualifying session. We had a few red flags along the way, but 2 real standout performances from Marcus Vingelhock and from René Rast. And even though Vingelhock had that moment early on.
Yes, it was an incident there. We saw an incident, brought the second red flag out, the Lamborghini, again in turn 9, causing the circuit to be red flagged, putting a lot of pressure on those that had yet to secure a time.
Then we saw René Rast out on the circuit, absolutely flashing through. Superb performance from him to take pole position ahead of tomorrow's race. The brake discs looked superb. Everything looked superb. Join us for the race tomorrow, 9 o'clock local time, 5 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. We'll see you then.